Hey, it's Chris Niccolls here from Bow River Troutfitters. And you know, as a fly fisher, we've all started at the beginning. Everything is difficult at first. Fly fishing is a difficult sport to master, and it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. Now, first off, before we go any further, I absolutely do not want to come across saying that everybody needs to strive to become the greatest fly fisherman of all time. It's totally your journey, and everybody is going to find a different way to what makes them happy in this sport. But I do know for myself, when I was starting out and trying to learn all these things, it was hard to understand what were the real benchmarks, what were the real issues that I need to focus on, practice on, and get better if I do want to become a skilled fly fisherman. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to tell you the things that we here at the shop feel are the things you should aim for, research, and practice to go forward further. Okay, but the first thing we want to talk about, casting, of course. I mean, this is one of the first things that beginners tackle. Now, we do often tell beginners, don't worry about casting for distance, and that's absolutely true. I mean, if you can go 30 to 40 feet, you will catch fish just fine. But if you can get better and be able to cast accurately up to 50 to 70 feet, this opens up a lot more water for you. It gets your flies over a lot more fish, and it does give you benefits. For example, when you're trying to not spook fish with long dry fly presentations, or if you're in the salt and you need to make quick, accurate casts out to 70 or 80 feet to catch that particular fish, that's where you need to devote some skill to that. That also means learning how to double haul. This is something you want to practice and master. When you can double haul, you will start to get into those longer distances effectively. But there's more stuff that I want you to learn when it comes to casting. Learn how to roll cast better and farther. When we start out, we're often just putting big loops, but if you really learn to throw that loop tightly in a roll cast, you'll get more distance, and you absolutely need to know how to roll cast. There's so many situations where you got a lot of branches and cover behind you, and if you don't know how to do this effectively, you're not gonna be able to fish that water. Also, the reach cast is very important. Being able to cast out a line and automatically put a mend into it during the cast, that can really be helpful and get you proper presentation for fish. We're going to talk about that as well. Last thing I want to say is learn how to tighten up your loops, especially with dry fly fishing or streamer fishing. You know, this is going to let you punch through the wind and get more distance. So those are things that you want to practice. Okay, the next big topic that you really want to focus on is presentation, and that means how we present our flies to the fish. You know, especially in rivers like here, the Bow River in Alberta, fish see a lot of food. They don't need to go for artificials if they don't have to, so you really have to convince them, and that means proper presentation. A big part of that is making sure you get nice, clean, dead drifts of flies. You know, dry fly fishing or nymph fishing, you really don't want to be influencing your fly in many situations. Sometimes we twitch here and there, sometimes we impart movement, but most of the time, dead drifting is key. And the answer to that, mending, mending, mending. Watch all the content you can on mending. Practice mending every time you're out there on the water. Learn how to do upstream and downstream mends and see how it influences your fly. You want to be able to get as long a drift as possible with as little motion as possible. And if you do that properly, you're going to catch a lot more fish. The last thing I want to say about presentation is when you're starting out, you can get away with a pretty generic 9-foot leader. You don't even have to match it that closely to the flies that you're casting, especially when you're learning. But if you want to get better and really catch those tricky fish or those spooky fish, as your casting improves, then you can also present with longer leaders. You can start putting out 12-foot leaders accurately. This is going to get you less drift, especially with a lot of cross currents. It's going to spook less fish, and that's going to translate into more fish for you. Okay, the next topic I want to cover, you've probably already heard before. It's called matching the hatch. But this is really about putting in the time and effort to understand the local bugs in your home waters and understand how the life cycles of those bugs work all year round. If you really make the effort to learn this, not only will you find it very interesting and rewarding, but you will catch more fish. So this really means doing a lot of research. It means talking to your local fly shop staff or guides, going on guided trips and asking the guides about what time of year is good, what bugs to fish. It'll also be very helpful then to learn what flies to tie or purchase to get the best results given any season or any time of year or water conditions where you like to fish. So the last thing I want to mention in terms of matching the hatch is just changing flies often. You know, when you're starting out, you're going to have a few flies that you've got a lot of confidence in because you caught fish with them before, and you still don't know why that fish bit. Was it the fly? Was it your presentation? Was it the time of year? Did you just get lucky? It's hard to have that confidence, but as you get better at this whole fly fishing thing, you get more confident and you know that you've put a fly right through the water where the fish are. If you're still not getting hits, then you need to change flies, and you're going to learn to be very versatile, changing different flies and different ways of presenting them in order to catch those fish. So don't be afraid to change flies and don't just stick with one hoping it's going to work. All right, this next topic I'm still struggling with. We're all still learning, but that's really fighting fish as effectively as possible. As anglers, we do have an ethical imperative to try to land fish as quickly as possible. And this means learning how to put as much pressure on them as possible without bending on your hook or breaking your tippet. It's also about learning what parts of the rod you can use to put more pressure on. The upper part of the rod is great for tippet protection, but really you want to learn how to use the lower parts of your rod, the angle that you hold it to the fish to put more pressure on them, turning their heads in the current, controlling the fight, leading the fish where you want to effectively land them quickly, and honestly using a net. We still think that's very, very important. Another thing you want to master, though, just to catch more fish, is the hook set. Okay. In a lot of cases, if we have a fish upstream from us, we do the classic trout lift, and that's a great way to put the hook right into the top of their mouth. But we're not always casting upstream to fish, or sometimes they'll take it in a different direction. And if you just lift up the rod, often you're going to yank the hook out of their mouths. So learning what angles to do hook sets at, downstream, towards shore, trying to think about how that hook is going to plant in their mouth and based on the direction that you do your hook set. When to strip set versus trout set. These are all things you're going to research very, very well and then practice on the water. All right, the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about, reading the water. Okay, so this is a twofold process. First off, reading the water to me means understanding how to nymph fish, how to streamer fish, and how to dry fly fish, and then applying that to the right water. Some runs are made for streamer fishing, some buckets are made for nymphing, and dry fly fishing, when you see it, you want to absolutely target for it, but it's about knowing what kind of water those techniques will work in best. Beyond that, reading the water is learning about where the fish lie, where the food's going, where the fish feel safe, where they have structure, where they have depth, and where they have oxygenation. Learning where this is and where the fish are is a big part of just getting your flies in the right spot. So when you learn to read the water, you'll absolutely notice your fishing improve. All right, I hope you guys found this educational. We've got tons of other YouTube videos that will help you with your research, so definitely check that out. And we can't cover everything. I know there's lots more stuff, so if you have any suggestions or comments on things that you think are also important to master going forward, definitely leave those in the comments below. Like the channel if you enjoyed this. Please subscribe. Now's a great time to do that. We'll see you soon with more episodes on Bow River Troutfitters.